thing Quo seem to have had to carry around with them for the last 40 odd years is the three chord wonders. Do you think there's any actual truth in that?
There is. There's huge truth in the three core wonders. My response would be, so what? These are the same people that would give 10-star review to the Ramones. Two chord wonders, and look at the adverts. Even had a song called One Chord Wonders. It's not the fact that it's three chords and a little white lie. Is what we say. Bono says three chords and the truth. Three chords are the best songs in the world because there's only a certain limited amount of ways you can play those three chords. So if you can get something unique coming out of three chords, you're doing really well. Most of us like the baseness of simplicity. You want to just rock out, not to think too hard. If you want to think, go listen to Bob Dylan. Go listen to Leonard Cohen. Status Quo weren't there to represent them. They were the antitheses of that. They were the opposite. They were the relief from all the hippie, overblown prog crap that was going off in the 70s. You could listen to Tales from a Topographic Ocean, or you could listen to Pile Driver. I mean, just the titles alone sets you apart. Do you know what I mean? There's fans out there that like both Yes and Quo, and why not? But when it comes to criticising a band for playing three chords, it's just nonsense. If they play them well and there's a bit of substance and something that you can just go, you know what? I can't say it too loudly because the guy next to me is going to laugh at me. But that's really good. And that's what Quo became. They ended up becoming guilty pleasure, which is something that we've suffered from too. And I think it's kind of sad, really. It's always, to me, there's two types of music. And I say this all the time, good and bad. And every band, Quo, us, Queen, Zeppelin, are capable of making both kinds of music. We've all made bad, but we've all made good. And Quo made tons of good stuff.
Mystery Song, there's a famous story behind. You said you liked it just earlier, that Francis had given Rick a load of speed and a cup of tea, and he stayed overnight in the studio. When they came in the next morning, he's on a stool going, have you been home? No. Have you heard this? That's good. I know where I was told the drugs don't work. Do the drugs work? Can it make things happen song wise?
Absolutely. Drugs through the history of rock from the 60s, which is where it's more obvious because that's where anything where it's the springboard, the starting point, it's always going to be historically where we all go to reference. Take drugs out of the Beatles. We don't get I Am the Walrus. We don't get Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. We don't get any of that weird kind of wacky Lennon stuff that came out. You probably wouldn't have got Green Tambourine, which is a song that Quo covered. You might not have got Pictures of Matchstick Men. I mean, I don't know what they were on, and it's really none of my business. But sometimes to free your mind, you actually have to open it up. And sometimes the only way to detangle you've got to remember, these were kids coming out of the 50s and the 40s whose fathers were probably in the RAF or in the army, and they're all like, do your own work, blah, blah, blah. It's not the easiest thing in the world to be that first maverick to just grow your hair and a beard and wear a shirt with no tie and just become this guy that we expect to like Marilyn Manson these days or something. It was hard to break away. That's where the 60s, when you see all the Twiggies and the Carnaby Street stuff and the Stones and the Small Faces and the Kinks and the Who wearing all their kind of mod stuff, or which became a scruffier look later on. They were mind-blowing images to people like us, as I would have only been 5 or 6 years old at the time, but to see these people going, wow, how cool are they? They were like the Mavericks. They were the Oscar Wildes of the music world in the 60s. They were, they got drunk, they took drugs, they did all stuff that normal people don't do, and consequently, it can actually push you to limits that your own boundaries that you're taught at school will never let you go. So you'll never get there because you have these perimeters that you're supposed to stay inside. And so, you become an accountant, you're told, so you can be a policeman. You're good with your hands, so you can be a greensman at the golf course, all this kind of crap. And it's like, somebody's good with their hands could actually end up being Eddie Van Halen, given the chance. And thank God that generation went before us. It made it a lot easier for us to beg guitars off our parents because they'd read about kids the generation before doing the same thing. It wasn't that alien by the time the 70s came along, which is when we were looking for something to do, But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to the limit that Johnny Thunders took it. I just saw some footage on YouTube of Thunders doing a gig that was actually banned on Swedish TV. You've got to check it out. He was insane, and that's just too far. Everybody seems to love Johnny Thunders. Truth is, he was an idiot. You know, it is. You know, he died. I mean, that's proof of the pudding. You know, and I liked him. I mean, I love some of his songs, but there's, you know, with I guess bands like Quo still just anchored a bit to the end of World War Two. They had their limits where it's like, oh, it's a little bit naughty. They didn't flaunt it. They'd lock themselves in their bathroom to do a line. Smoke a bit of pot in a locked toilet. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't tell the wife. Don't tell the kids. Don't tell the, you know, the roadies. They'll want some. It was always a kind of the Hellfire Club. It was a gentleman's agreement that you just kept it to yourself. And that's why I don't know what their intake would have been. But, you know, I'd imagine in the early days it probably fueled a few things, and maybe later so. And it can also kill creativity, let's be honest, looking at it from both sides. You never know when, I think with everything, there's this arc, and on your way up, it's good, and you get to the top, and you peak, and then you start to fall off the other side. You may be still as good as you were there, but if you get back down here again, it's going to be really hard to get back up, and drugs can do that.